Welcome to the Rolling Out Boundless Brothers virtual conference where there's no limit to being a Black man. I have with me two incredible guests for a dynamic discussion on books bound to change a Black man's life. You see books behind brother number one, brother number two, brother number three, but we're going to get into all of that. But let me introduce you to these dynamic men. They're my big brothers. They are mentors. They guide me and numerous other Black men, women, and humans around our entire culture. June Archer, TV host, author, music exec, mogul to the moguls, star to the stars. And we also have Mel Roberson. Mel is a speaker, dynamic motivational speaker, actor, author, entrepreneur, DJ, mentor to all, like superb. These are what I call super beings, and I'm enlightened. I'm always inspired to be in you all's presence. Thank you, June. Thank you, Mel, for being here. Say what's up to our Rolling Out family.
Man, it's a pleasure to even be on this platform. Thank you. And just, while we were backstage, I had the opportunity to meet the awesome Mel Roberson. I'm glad to be here, man. And I'm just excited about what we're going to talk about and the energy that may just unfold and the magic that's going to unfold. So this is going to be awesome.
No doubt. Thank you for having me as well and meeting Brother June. And of course, Marcellus, I've known you since you were what, 12, 13 years old. So,
Dunking on your Jordan jammer.
Yeah, right. But it's good to be here. It's anytime that I get to build and politic with brothers, especially about education and not formal education, right? I'm only 6'1" physically, but if I stand on the books that I've read, I'm a giant. And I believe that we learn so much through what we take in and even more about what we put out. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. As you all see, part of my library behind me. Man, this whole room is crazy. So yeah, it was hard picking out only three. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
It was a great challenge, though. I must say it was a great challenge. Yeah. And allowed me to kind of get back into the mindset of what really shaped me along this journey. So I agree with Brother Mel. This is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was probably one of the hardest things I've done all year. We gave ourselves a challenge of selecting 3 books. If there was a young Black male in our lives or a Black male period, and they're going off on their life journey and we passed them and we could give them 3 books, what would it be? And that's what we're going to discuss today. Those books that are bound to change and transform a Black male's life. So before we get into that, June, you hit on just the significance of what books are. So let me ask, why has it been important for both of you to read as a Black man?
For me, the importance of reading takes me out of my current reality to learn more about what else is going on in this universe, right? So a book can take you places that where you're standing right now won't allow you to, but as you begin to read, you start to hear of places, you start to see concepts. But more importantly, what I wanted to do is in 1995, I became vegetarian. And the second piece of that is I stopped using curse words. I stopped using expletives because I was listening to people. It got to a point where I stopped talking so much and I began to listen. And I didn't, not that it was anything wrong with the friends that I had around me. I just wanted to expand my vocabulary. And I said, if I could just read more, how many more words can I put in my vocabulary that I will never have to use an expletive to use as a definition or an adjective, right? I could use an intelligent word. I could use a word to describe something instead of using an expletive. So between that and trying to figure out, man, what else is out there than where I am standing right now, to me was key. And you never stop learning. So for me, it was even throughout college, like I just gravitated toward the books because some of the stuff that I read, you can't read in the books that we have presented in school, right? Because some of the stuff is based on reality, right? Real world experience. So I was always gravitating towards autobiographies because these are the people that are telling you, like, this is what I went through. This is my life's journey. That's what I was attracted to, right? Because those are the things when you read, well, I don't want to say because some of these books might be the ones that we're talking about, but these popular autobiographies, they allow you to navigate the waters. So for me, it was super important, Marcellus, to really jump into these books. And now I've challenged myself, especially through COVID, man, try to read at least 2 books a month. Try to knock out two different ones, even if they're polar opposites. Or a business book and a self-help book, or autobiography and a self, like whatever. Try to read 2 books a month and just imagine how you'll expound your vocabulary by just doing that. Imagine how bigger your mind begins to think when you do that. So I want to pass that over to Brother Mel and get his perspective on it.
And you know what? I was going to weigh in real quick, June, with what you mentioned, that vocabulary and reading, books and what that does. And I know brothers who've been in prison, and, that was the first time they really leaned into books, and they say it expanded their vocabulary. Talk about a guy that I worked with, wrote a book with him as well, and Chris Freeman. And when he was incarcerated, he actually went from a 9th grade dropout to becoming valedictorian of his GED class, and went on to get a college degree. So that's the power of it. And I ran across a stat that says that by the age of 3, the average Black child learns, or actually, let's say a white child has learned 3 million or more words, has been exposed to 3 million words more than the Black child. And so that alone gives you, just the bandwidth to be able to communicate and express yourself. And if you're frustrated in expressing yourself, then that's going to be what your behavior kind of reflects, And so it is. I think that was such a great challenge. I think we all should, avoid some curse words, at least for the remainder of the year, and see what words can we use to replace that. And that would be a dope challenge. So no doubt. Mel, why is this important?
I'll make sure I don't do any for the remainder of the show. I can't promise you for the remainder of the year. Only because I'm in entertainment and some of my characters require it. Okay. So the play I'm in coming up, I got to say a couple. So, but I'm with you, June, on that. There's so many more words that are available to us that sometimes we settle. And I remember Jim Rohn said something. He said, if it's not necessary to curse, it's necessary not to curse. If it's not necessary to yell, it's necessary not to yell, right? Because if you yell all the time, and then one day your child is running in the street chasing the football and you're yelling, that's normal communication for them. There's no shock value there. There's no, oh my God, there's something different. So they run out in the street and potentially get hit by the car. So I'm with you on that. As far as reading and the place it is held in my life and why I believe it's necessary. And this is the part where I cheat a little bit, but at least I let you know when I cheat. I'm going to name some books that aren't in my 3 that you made me pick out. but I remember the very first time I read To Kill a Mockingbird and the story of Atticus Finch and how he was defending a Black man who was up in this trial, and the feelings and the emotions that I had as a teenager when I read this book. As a matter of fact, I think this is the first time I ever cried reading this book and everything that they were going through in this, Southern situation where this Black man is in trial. So to speak to June's point of it taking you somewhere where you aren't physically, I grew up in the inner city of Chicago. I got shot outside my own home my senior year in high school in an attempted carjacking. So to be able to be in a place like that, but have my mind to take me someplace else, books have definitely done that for me. They've definitely expanded my vocabulary. And the other thing that I heard when I was really, really young, and I don't consider myself prejudice or anything like that, but I am no stranger to the atrocities that Black people have experienced and what we go through. But somebody said it, and they said, if a white person wants to hide something from you, they put it in a book. And that made me think, well, whatever they hide, and I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna find all of the stuff that they're hiding. And you know, some of my really good friends are white, so this isn't a knock towards white people. I believe we do have some allies, but I do know that, you know, the statistic says that I think 92% of people in the US don't read a book after high school. Right. And the ones that do, the 8% that do read a book after high, and it might even be higher than that. That might be an old statistic, but the percentage of people that do read a book after high school, they generally aren't books that help contribute to their financial stability, health, or well-being. They're, you know, some type of novel or whatever it is, fantasy stuff. And not that those don't have their place, but we generally aren't reading things that expand our minds to the point where we are doing better in life because of what we read.
Well said. Well said. I like that.
Man, Mel, when you mentioned that quote, which hit me just as hard when I heard it for the first time, but if you want to hide something from a Black man, put it in a book. It's one of the most disrespectful statements I've ever heard in my life. And just like you, Mel, I was like, what are they hiding?
Yeah.
And they could be hiding our culture. They could be hiding our connection to God. They could be hiding stimulation of our mind and that ability, like you said, June, to be able to expand our vocabulary. Like you said, Mel, to expand our ability to go somewhere beyond just our physical circumstance, hiding our education, hiding our wealth, hiding success, hiding the secrets to life. And so when you really understand that, especially as a Black man, there's not a book that's going to come across, that you're going to run across, that if you see an inkling of value, that you're not going to devour it, that you're not going to grab it, that if Mel tells me to, you know, man, there's a new book that I need to read, and he tells me this on probably a bi-monthly basis, I'm on, if it's not Amazon, I try to go to blackbookstore.com first. And that's where Rolling Out and founder Munson Steve, you know, owns that site. So make sure when you want to check out a book, especially Black books, Black authored books, go to blackbookstore.com. But I make sure that, you know, I jump on those books as well as June when you mentioned that as well. So without further ado, let's get into, you know, people know me for these book verses that I do on Instagram Live. This is going to be a collective. Everything is going into this library, this virtual Boundless Brothers library that we want everyone to be aware of and to expand their minds with. So kicking it off, we got 3 books. You know, if we're able to suggest that every Black male read, who wants to kick it off?
I'm gonna defer to Mel because he's the elder statesman. So
Elder statesman, just because I got more gray hair than you, brother, don't mean I'm older than you, man. I started graying at 12 now.
That means you have more wisdom. You mean you have more wisdom than I do.
All right, I will kick off the first one. So I am a firm believer that it is very difficult for us to go someplace new if we don't know the old places that we have been. And so for my first book, this is a very emotional and challenging book. And honestly, there are more pictures than words in there. There are stories in there, but there are more pictures than words in this particular book. It's a book called Without Sanctuary is the name of this book. And it is a lynching photography in America, basically a journal. So from the, 1800s, 1900s, it's a series of stories and photographs. Actually, there might not be more pictures than words. There are quite a bit of words in here, but it is a photography journal of a variety of places throughout America where Black men and women have been lynched. And all of these pictures are not like, slavery times or whatever. You even get up to some, I think in the 70s that are in this book. but it's crazy how they thought about us, how they treated us, and completely disregarded our lives. And so it was between my first book was between this one and a book called Warriors Don't Cry, which is about the Little Rock Nine, and one of the account of one of the young ladies that went to that school. And the reason that I selected this one over that one as my first book is because not only the pictures that are in the book and everything that's depicted, but I think sometimes in order for us to truly grasp our history and understand it, we need to see those atrocities, and we need to see how real they really were. It's one thing when you heard the story of Emmett Till, and it's another thing when you physically saw the pictures of how bloated he was, right? It's one thing when you lynching as a concept in America, if it's taught in schools at all, which, you know, with this whole thing about critical race theory and them trying to get rid of that, whole nother panel, whole nother discussion, we could go into that. But I think this book, the reality of it, and the way that my eyes were opened when I saw these lynchings and when I read some of the stories behind them, and how insignificant they thought our lives were, and how some of them weren't even for accused crimes. It was because they felt like it at the time and got away with it. You know, especially with the modern day lynchings that we have now going on, you know, with things like the police brutality and Ahmaud and just all this stuff. I don't want to go down that path, but yeah, Without Sanctuary, first book, it's a lynching photography journal in America, and it really hits home.
Wow. Mel, you may be able to co-sign this story. There's a young mentee of mine who, like you, he crossed Kappa. And
Okay.
yeah, but he told me, because he was going through it in that process, so he can tell me a lot, but he was like, I'm going through it. But afterwards, he talked about some of the changing points and value that he got out of that experience, what he was taught and what he learned that, you know, created a brotherhood for a lifetime. And he was glad to be a part of a brotherhood. But he said that there was a story shared. I don't know the person's name, but he was one of the, if not one of the founding people within the Kappa fraternity, you know, was a part of it very early on. But he was about to be lynched amongst a bunch of white men. And he told them while he was being lynched of the dream and the vision that he had to be able to start these schools around the nation, to be able to teach Black people around the nation, and was so compelling about this purpose that they not only let him go, but they gave him money and resources to go on and pursue this purpose, which he ended up doing. Have you heard that story before?
So let me tell you that I cannot confirm nor deny that story. And let me also say that Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated is a non-hazing organization. let me be abundantly clear on that part. On that part right there. But we do have a founder that his nickname is the Dreamer. Elder Watson Diggs is his name, and there are some things that, you know, I don't want to take up too much time, because you get me talking about the fraternity. This could be something extremely crazy for me because of my affinity for my fraternity. But yeah, that I don't even remember exactly what your question was, but he was one of those people who, I hadn't heard the lynchings part of that story, but he was one of those people who could tell a compelling story and definitely had a vision further than what his present circumstances were.
Wow. Appreciate that, Mel. June, what are you dropping? Your first round.
Right. First round.
Number one book.
This is and this is in no particular order, but I feel like this is will be a great compliment to Mel, and a great segue to what you may have. But this right here enlightened me a lot, because I grew up in a household where my parents were immigrants from Jamaica. So there were times where I didn't really understand the Black experience, because my parents came from a different cultural background and makeup, where they didn't really know racism. They knew colorism in Jamaica, but they didn't really understand Jim Crow or segregation when they came to this country. So when we moved from the inner city into the suburbs, it was that dual life of, well, you can't really be Black because your white people, the white people look at you kind of funny, but you can't be Jamaican because the Black people look at you kind of funny. And this kind of helped me get a better sense of the experience of a Black man in America. So my first choice is Makes Me Wanna Holler by Nathan McCall.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every young Black man, and my son is gonna be, he's 13, so he's just about right where he needs to be to dive into this, because his experience is gonna be a lot different than mine, because he was, as much as I was blessed with the West Indian culture, we don't have it as much in my immediate family. So it's a generation removed. So he is really experiencing all of this racism for himself, that I could say to him, man, I didn't kind of grow up like that. I've been called, derogatory words, but it's different for him. I want him to read this because he's seeing the Trayvon Martin stories. He's seeing the Aubrey, he's seeing Mike Brown, right? He's seeing George Floyd. I want every young Black man to put this on their shelves or put it in their Amazon, or go to the organization that you said, right? Find this book, read it, give it to your Black son, give it to your Black nephew, your grandson. This is right here is a great read, a great read.
I remember reading that when I believe I was in 13. I was 13 years old. It was a required reading, for the class I was in. And yeah, that's a difference maker. Awesome first round. What can I add to that? This is probably a popular favorite for many. I was going to reach out to you all to see if this was a unanimous, so I wouldn't, just providing something that was almost known. But since it hasn't been mentioned yet, I'm going to mention, probably one of the more popular books. And it is so popular and so valuable to me that I had 2 copies of it, but the Autobiography of Malcolm X. And like many, I saw the movie first. It was really big. I was in school. People weren't even going to school that day to go see it. It was a really big promotional movement. Spike Lee did it. And that movie to me is one probably top 3 movies ever for me. But to become older and actually read the book and to be able to travel that journey with Malcolm X and his words and Alex Haley, he goes through the entire evolution of a Black man going from, I'm not going to use this word because I normally don't, I'll just say the N-word, to a God. Like, he shows the full evolution of the perception of what people see, and what was his experiences behind that. And he had a tragic childhood. His father, who was a Garveyite, was killed. And his mother, went into a mental institution. And he was, he had a breaking point, and he talks about these in his own words. He was in school and he said that he wanted to be a lawyer. And his teacher was like, there's no way you can be that because of your race, because you're Black. You can't be that. Didn't make sense to him. And even though he was smart, and me and my guy, Silas, he runs a Silas Green, runs 530 Scholars. It's a great educational training program, particularly for Black students. But we talk about how many Malcolm X's do we have that start off troubled? Because Malcolm became and he talks about, the movie is one thing, but he talks about how much of a savage he was, pimping, drug dealing, gambling, prostitution, exploiting women. He goes into detail of how to do these things. And for him, and there's so many that fall into that space because they're programmed and conditioned in a system that tells them they can't be anything other than that. So at some point, Malcolm X, at the time, Malcolm Little felt that was the only way to come up. And as he started to get entry-level jobs, he said, wait, there's a whole different, I'm serving, in a ballroom, and I'm providing these toiletries, to people who are doing everything up under the sun, but they got all the money in the world to do it. So I'm going to start pursuing that. And a lot of times our Malcolm X's in our community, they don't live beyond 15. They don't see 25. They don't get a chance to make that transition, meet that person that changes their life, introduces them to God in a different way, or books and reading the way that we're discussing. So and if you could imagine what our world would be like without Malcolm X, and then imagine what our world is still struggling with because we didn't have more Malcolm X's. Because for many that have the power and the leadership of a Malcolm, it takes that experience, and it takes being incarcerated, and it takes bottoming out to use all of that negatively channeled energy and turn it into a positive, powerful force. And the different complex transitions, he reflects transitions because he goes so hard. And if he has a tipping point, we talk about expanding our minds. He talks about how significant it was for him to travel and go overseas, and his trip to Mecca. And he saw that what's going on in America, that's not necessarily what's going on in other parts of the world. And how we view people in America based on how we're treated is not necessarily how they're getting down in the rest of the world. So he got a greater context of himself beyond just being a Black man in America being oppressed during that time period. So to make those transitions and to get to a point where he was on such an extreme end, but he gets to a point where he's able to smile and shake hands with Martin Luther King, and was soon after assassinated. And even in his book, he said that, I don't think I will be around by the end of this book. And he wasn't. But the transition that he made and the constant evolution before he was even 40, like you said, June, those autobiographies, you really go on a trip. And when you read those words, and I think one of the powerful things about a book, you're reading it in your own voice, even though someone else who wrote it. But at some point in that book, that voice becomes you. Right. Malcolm X becomes you, and you become him. And it's a higher state of consciousness that you absorb something that can be life-changing. So throw Malcolm in a mix of what you all share. But man, that's we've given that Black male already something powerful. I'm just thinking of a kid with a backpack, with the Without Sanctuary book, lynchings, the pictures of that, and Nathan McCall, Make Me Want to Holler, Autobiography of Malcolm X. He's good, but we're gonna load them up with even more. We're gonna load these viewers with even more for options. So what do y'all have for that second round of books that can change a Black man's life?
Second book. This is, and I'm an author. I've co-authored 5 books, 6 books now. The 6th one I co-author will be released soon. And I have 1 solo project, and I've given away more copies of the next book that I'm about to tell you than all of my books combined, because it's done that much for me. And it's not by a Black author. This book is The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. So the first thing is, all right, what have we been through? The second thing is, well, what is possible, right? If I know what I've been through and I see how they treated us, man, is this all that there is? And the answer is no. The Magic of Believing is a book that helped shape my philosophies and the way that I think about not only business, but the way that I think about life and my ability to create anything that I want. I realize that anything that is not the physical manifestation of something God created himself came about because of somebody's thought process and the fact that they believed that they could do whatever it was that they wanted to do. Right. And this is something that I talk about in my seminars. Right. So the Wright brothers, their father was a pastor, and before they took flight, he did a sermon called, If God Wanted You to Fly, if God wanted man to fly, he would have given him wings. Their own father, who was a pastor, said that. Had they believed him, then, Wagwan brethren, yeah, I see you already there. right? I love Jamaica. My best friend is from Clarendon. I've been going to Jamaica since I was little. How would I have gotten to Jamaica without an airplane though, right? That is a long boat ride, but they believed it was possible. So take that back and rewind it and talk about a young Black man, or me as a young Black man when I first got this book. The ability to believe that whatever I want to do in life, whatever I want to accomplish is possible, and the concepts and the power of your mind and the power of your thinking and the power of belief and some of the exercises that are in here, regardless of what field of human endeavor you're involved in. I think that this book is a staple, and you can see this is beat up, and this isn't even an old one. This is one this one is probably only 2 or 3 years old, but that's how much I reference it. That's how much I go through it. I probably read this book twice a year and reference it throughout the year. And I've given away literally hundreds of copies of this book over the years to my sales teams, to people I mentor, to whoever. So The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol is that next book, because what you think about, you bring about, and what you ask for, you get. If you act the way you want to be, soon you will be the way that you act. And everything is preceded in thought. And from that thought, you need the belief for that springboard to action to eventually get the results. So that's my second book. And by the way, this red cup that I'm drinking out of is only water. I promise you. I know some people watching this will be like, man, he got a party cup. What's going on?
You know what the red cup mean on the block, man.
No, it's more crimson for him than red. So let's we'll give him that.
Crystal Geyser is all that's in this cup.
No doubt.
Right.
The magic of believing.
The magic of believing. I like that. I like that one. All right. So I'm going to once again compliment what you have there, Brother Mel, because seeing is believing. But what about being in a situation where you may fall from grace, and what do you do with all the tools that you were given? For me, this next book, I believe a Black male should read, because in the event that you go on and you get married, right? You can understand your wife. If you go on and you actually have a daughter, you'll be able to understand some of the things, not everything, but you could kind of be able to empathize, sympathize, connect with in a better way what a young lady is going through. So my second book is by none other than Sister Soldier, The Coldest Winter Ever. It talks about this young lady who was brought up in money. She was born in money. And then one day, the bottom falls out and she is left with her street smarts, her beauty, and her wit. And what is she gonna do as now she has now have to weather the storm? So I think this book for not only just for young women, young Black girls, because I would love for my daughter to read it, but I would love for my son to read it so he can understand there may be times when those coldest winters come for your sister. You understand your sister, you understand your mother, you understand your girlfriend or your wife, because you kind of understand what some of those roadblocks and obstacles are that young ladies have to go through, especially our young Black and brown girls. So Coldest Winter Ever is my second, fellas.
Sister Soldier. Yeah, that is we've had conversations before, June, and fathers, have read that book, man. Many of them read it in prison, many of them read it, and it is such a valuable book for fathers, especially when they have daughters.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
For you all. And you both have daughters.
Now I feel horrible because I got 2 daughters and I haven't read that book. Let me go to what was it? Blackbooks.com?
Blackbookstore.com. Shout out to Mr. Steve. It's powerful. Really, really good stuff there. I'm gonna take it to I'm gonna go a little different. I'm gonna do a shout out because I'm cheating in this. But because you hit on so many of these qualities, Mel, and the magic of believing, I think this is a great author. I think he's one of the greatest authors ever. I want to shout him out and show this book I'm cheating because I'm gonna throw this in there. But since you covered so much about the power of thinking and our thoughts becoming our reality when we believe, this book changed my life. Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice, and many are familiar with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Dennis Kimbrough.
His estate, Napoleon Hill, actually reached out to Dr. Dennis Kimbrough to create this book. And he's actually a professor in residence at Rolling Out, this year. And he's done some incredible master classes. And his main question was, and he comes for real, he's like, what is the key behind someone being successful and someone failing? Or the difference between someone being rich and another, falling into poverty? And ultimately, it's your choice, which is reflected behind your thinking and being able to believe strong enough. And he incorporated spirituality with actual success principles for business and built that, for, other books that he created, The Wealth Choice. And he just goes into just how thinking, it's always invisible before it becomes a reality. It has to be invisible. This virtual Zoom, or hopping or rolling out, or, Mel, June, myself, the books we had, the clothes we're wearing, the physical bodies that we're in, it had to be an idea first. There's nothing, anyone watching this on an iPhone or the computer, it had to be an idea. So you have to truly believe in that. So I'm cheating a little bit because a lot of the positivity you spoke of, also in this books, but Think and Grow Rich. So I wanted to shout him out because he's a professor in residence. But I'm going to share a book.
And before you move past him, Sal, I purposefully did not pick that book because I knew that you were going to pick that book. I have it. It's right next to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich on my shelf back there.
I have it.
But I purposefully did not pick that because I'm like, Sal is going to pick that book.
So you know what? I thought that was going to be a unanimous pick of books that we would have, and it is Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough.
Yep.
So this
and the Autobiography of Malcolm X. So I looked at it and I'm like, I know that you used it in your verses. I'm like, he probably, like Mel said, probably gonna use that Malcolm.
Right.
I'm gonna go slide down the other side of the bookshelf.
Yeah. Okay, so we're all a unanimous decision on that one. I'm gonna bring up one that most people may not know about, but it impacted me significantly. It's called Brainwash, and it's by Tom Burrell. I'm in the field of marketing as a brand strategist, and this book was gifted to me. I've worked with Burrell Advertising before. They've worked with Rolling Out as well, and he mentioned that the most successful, this is a guy I look at, as one of the icons in marketing, just like a Steve Stout, Bozeman St. John. He stated that the most successful marketing campaign ever was a propaganda promotion of white superiority and Black inferiority. He said of all the marketing campaigns, and that is all that it is deeply rooted in creating a Black inferiority brand. And how programmed we are to be stripped of our cultural identity and brainwashed. And I had a conversation with my sister Yatasha, and we were talking about just hip hop. And she shared with me that hip hop, the way, a lot of what we may see, some of the negative portrayals and the violence, that's not even what we want. The algorithm and the metrics for that are based on, especially when there were CD sales and even the streams, is 80% bought by or purchased, money spent, even though we created and we engage in it, it's through white suburban area. And so what it is that portrayal that we hear so much in the music, that's not even what we asked for. That's what a teenage white person was asking for. That extreme exploited perception of us. Because I don't think we want to we're not trying to see gangsters killing it up like that, the way that we may see, hip hop portrayals. We're not trying to overly exploit women, and have them look a certain way. We're not overly obsessed like that. That is something else that isn't even natural to us, but that's just an example. And he kind of breaks that down, in this mindset, and that we were the first luxury good as slaves, and there was so much of it. I mean, that was status. The more slaves you have, the more wealth that you have. And, we grew up in a country where, considered, 3/5 of a human being, and most of the people who wrote the Constitution had slaves. So it was deeply rooted in that. And that Black inferiority product has been modernized and updated throughout time. So in slavery, we were considered subhuman beasts. After slavery and its Reconstruction, it was like, well, how can we still make you less than, as a third-class citizen? When it was a civil rights era, Tom Burrell spoke of, now we need to make you look like a revolutionary, angry, communist, anti-American. And today, in a modern era, it's about really taking away humanization from low-income people, particularly low-income Blacks. And so we criminalize you, create systems, and then exploit those systems of drug addiction, these innate failures, and just all these different moral and economic declines that we put on you. And and it comes even, to even being a father and being a Black man, where there have been so many conversations that have been branded to break down a Black man, and even though there's a self-responsibility in there, we do need to acknowledge that there's a system meant to promote us as an inferiority brand when we're actually the complete opposite. And these books demonstrate that, these conversations demonstrate that, these brotherhood connections, such as the Boundless Brothers virtual conference, kind of shows that. So, the solution that he presents is to create these Black brain think tanks, similar to what we do, similar to what Munson and so many in the Rolling Out family do, but also to create an ultimate branding campaign. So that and I think we're doing that now. When you see natural hair movement and the Black beauty and the significance of education and conversations that we're having, dope brothers like yourselves looking fly, we're talking about the books that you read, and just the power, like that type of power, economic empowerment, educational empowerment, that's the new sexy. So one time brainwashed Tom Burrell. So.
Which is a perfect leeway to my third book. But June, it looks like you were about to jump in and say something.
Oh, y'all both looking antsy. Y'all look like WWF.
You the layup. Gave you the layup, Mel.
This third round, last book that you can get, the young Black male.
Dr. Claude Anderson.
Woo!
You already know where I'm going. Powernomics. Man, bro, this book right here, The National Plan to Empower Black America, especially on the economic side, since, as some of the stuff that you were talking about, the thing that I really like that he talks about in here is building competitive communities. But I mean, there are just so many things in here, like, and though this book is a little bit older, the framework and technology has changed some, the framework or the foundation of the things that he talks about in here, they do give us a platform to build upon, right? It's like war has been here since the beginning of time. Instead of using sharpened sticks, now we have all types of weapons of mass destruction or whatever. So war is war, right? So building is building. The tools might be different, but some of the framework that he lays out here is amazing. In chapter 1, he talks about racism, monopolies, and inappropriate behavior. Chapter 2 is the keys to empowerment. Chapter 3, which is my favorite chapter, is building the competitive communities. But chapter 4, I think, is super important too. Restructuring schools for group competitiveness, right? Instead of us having this individuality mindset as to where it's me against Sale, it's me against June, this scarcity mentality, this whole let me get out there and compete with my brother instead of let me get out there and complete my brother and work together, in the cooperative economics right? One of the principles of Kwanzaa is cooperative economics, right? Let us get out there and build these types of communities and educate our children to build this mindset where we are doing things together. Our neighborhood is our neighborhood. You know, we support our Black businesses. We create Black businesses. And this is some of the stuff we were talking about in the green room before we started this broadcast. How do we do that? How long does the Black dollar stay in the community, right? 6 hours or less before it's gone. And so Powernomics, like there's some hidden gems in here. I don't want to monopolize the time, but just some great stuff in here. Yeah, like just the one that I opened to right now, when he talks about economic action steps, establish international economic alliances and marketing agreements between Black America, Black Africa, and Caribbean nations. There's so many times where all the things that we do, or the only things that we know, are what we have here. You know, June has ties to Jamaica. You know, we have friends that we know in other places where we could be doing our own importing, exporting. And we could recreate our own Black Star Line like Marcus Garvey did, right? Where we're doing stuff and supporting each other and all of those things. So this is my third book, Powernomics by Claude Anderson.
Wow. Did you read the book he wrote before that, Black Labor, White Wealth?
No.
Oh man, that's a dope one as well. That was the prelude to Powernomics. So you get everything in Powernomics, but he really breaks down so much in the Black Labor, White Wealth and the economic impact. You know, America went from nothing to a global power strictly based off of cotton and becoming the backs of Blacks. And becoming, you know, I think it was 70%. He breaks down the numbers, you know, I think it was 70% market share globally. And how are you getting there? How are you, man, your profit and loss sheet has no expenses. You're more profitable. Like you have no payroll. Like I'll leave it at that. But man, Claude Anderson, Mel, dope selection, Powernomics. He's a very much a leader, a forefather in this movement. So, John, what you got?
Dope. So I'm gonna put a little sugar in the medicine. Because one of the things that I realize is we are talking to young Black men. We have to meet them where they are. So in doing that, I'm gonna say hustle harder, hustle smarter.
50 Cent.
50.
It says it here. There is no such thing as making it. No matter how much money you stack, fame you achieve, or success you taste, there are going to be more struggles, more drama, more obstacles. The goal is not just to be successful. It's about learning how to sustain that success. So with this book, and when I say put the sugar in the medicine, a lot of our young people, they love hip hop, they love 50, they love the things that he's creating as it pertains to Power Book 2, BMF. So if they're going to read and we could get their attention, I will give them this book by 50 Cent to kind of understand you can achieve things, but to obtain it is one thing, to maintain it is another. So hustle harder, hustle smarter.
50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, and June. Many don't know this. Matter of fact, so many people know it, but some people watching, you know, in the Rolling Out family may not know that you know 50 Cent personally. You work with him, you've interviewed him, particularly around the Power series, and you do a lot of work with thisis50.com. So knowing 50 Cent, what resonated in the book where you read it and said, this is 50 and this is the secret sauce? And I noticed, not just from reading this book, I know this man and I know how he exemplifies this hustle harder grind.
To me, the thing that stands out is his ability to want to be the best at his craft. That means being persistent. That means having this relentless pursuit, not just of perfection, but the relentless pursuit of, man, I'm going to wake up, have the opportunity to achieve the impossible and the possible. So for me, even in the book, when it first came out, you know, my executive producer, Jeremy, shout out to him, Jay Bettis, everybody in the office was like, yo, did you read the book? And I'm like, I got it. You know, I'm gonna crack it open. Like, did you read the book? And in the book, unbeknownst to me, he's talking about this person who is trying to put themselves in a position to elevate their next steps. And they're doing this based on how they want to be perceived. They're dressing the part, right? The person he's talking about happens to be me. When I came to the platform, I started off with as a dude that was doing 60-second, you know, motivational tips with a bow tie, with a blazer on and a dress shirt button up, where the audience was like, man, who is this with the bow tie? Like, are you serious with this guy? Right? But I knew that I saw something different. I saw something bigger. I wanted to create a platform and an energy around me that would change people's lives, or at least get them to think glass half full instead of half empty, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? To know that you have the opportunity every day to go get it. And in there, just let me know that he pays attention to the things that are around him. That's what makes him successful, right? That's what makes him the go-getter. And to see it, people like, oh, June, you got a shoe out, you got books, you got that. Well, I'm looking at 50 Cent. I'm looking at Jay-Z. I'm looking at Oprah. They're doing multiple things. So why can't I do it, right? Imagine what the world of entertainment would look like if some people said, Oprah, just stick to doing interviews. Don't create a network. Don't try to produce shows and movies. Don't do that. Jay, stick to rapping. Don't go into streaming. Don't go into movies. Don't produce movies. 50, just stick to rapping, man. Don't do no movies. Don't come out with no water. Just imagine what it would look like. So when you see that these individuals are entrepreneurs and they're giving other people opportunities to live their dreams and live their best lives, if I could see it, I can achieve it, right? Mel just said that. He just said it in the book he just gave us, right? Magic of believing, right? When you look at these individuals, they give you the sense of, man, I believe I could do that, despite my situation, despite everybody on the block, despite how I grew up, despite what my parents went through, despite that my parents weren't around. Like, yo, that magic of believing, they exemplify it. So in this book, it says it: hustle harder, hustle smarter. So that's what I learned from it, man. Like, just having the crazy work ethic. He's the hardest working man in show business right now. Come on, he's got
Because he
what?
believes, because
5,
he's
6
destined to
shows
be
now?
destined to be number one. Destined, and gonna work for it. That's what's up. You know what, as we close out, and we just got a couple of minutes, so I'm not even gonna take long on this book. I'm gonna say it. It's the ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
Great book.
I can't even talk about this for risk of losing sponsors or rolling out and all of the types of things. But this is a book, Black Brothers. You need to grab it. And I just will share that probably one of the main premises is her sharing, and she's a psychologist. She studies mental states and how it relates to social circumstances. And she committed her entire work to how did this construct of racism even come about. And she broke down her premises. The purpose of racism ultimately is to prevent white genetic annihilation. And as strong as that is, and even though ultimately we should have love in our hearts and that everyone has the ability to be good, and this is not all white people are not good, but if there's been a certain mindset to keep, in a certain construct, in a certain system to keep Black people down, why was that? What was going on psychologically? And she ties in concepts of psychological trauma, such as alienation, anxiety, narcissism, and then connects that to why certain things have been in today. And if you don't see yourself being able to multiply fruitfully as you would like, as you desire. If you can't think big enough to see beyond that, then you end up creating another world and a whole different construct that is opposite from the reality, to be able to showcase an illusion otherwise. And I think it's so important for us as Black men to understand that we are unstoppable. Just like you talked about 50 Cent. He said, I walk around like I got an S on my chest. Like all of us got an S on our chest. Like we're all here for a significant supernatural purpose. And we have a supernatural challenge in front of us historically. But these conversations and our ability to bond, our ability to have these open dialogues, conversations, and tap into these books is the power behind it. So I wasn't supposed to say, I apologize rolling out if I overstep some things, but this is the type of conversations and this is the type of deeply centered reflection that we should have in order to take what we may perceive as impossible to inevitable, and we are unstoppable, boundless brothers. So in closing out, you all are authors. So I want you all to shout out your books that will shortly be on blackbookstore.com. But I'm sure that, they're one Google search away, one website away from purchasing them. So let our people know how they can find, just the power behind what you are put behind a book as authors.
Yeah, I rock with rolling out. So if I could get my books listed there, that would be amazing. If they're not already, I don't know, my publisher may have done that. Like I said, I've co-authored 5 books, now 6 books. Actually, we have a book called Lessons for Little Boys that's coming out in the first quarter of next year. That is, if we had to write a letter to our younger selves or to a young man, what would it say? So that's the next book. And this is part 2 of that book. I wasn't in part 1, but that one's coming out soon. But the book that I'm most known for, and that most companies bring me in to speak about, because I don't claim to be the wealthiest person in the world, but I am definitely one of the happiest, and that comes from being and happiness is wealth to me, and that comes from being well-rounded. I wrote a book that will be 10 years old next year. It's hard to believe that it came out in 2012, called 31 Amazing Life Lessons of Joshua Stokes. And it's what I call a self-help novel. It's self-help principles wrapped in a story, because our mind thinks in what are called pictographs. And so instead of it being one of those books where I just give you these principles and how to apply them, they're encompassed in allegory or in a story, as to where you can see how the principles were at work and understand the meat and potatoes. I'm a vegetarian too, though, but the meat and potatoes of the story, and how Joshua became this man that he is, because it walks through time. I don't want to give too much of the book away. I'm actually writing a screenplay for it now, so we can make it a movie as well. But it's a great story. Every time I read it, I'm like, man, the creator was really working through me to put this out there, because I'm amazed when I read it, and I wrote it. But yeah, 31 Amazing Life Lessons of Joshua Stokes.
A must read.
Yeah, a must read. And I'm not saying that because I wrote it. Like, if I didn't write the book and I read it, I would be like, man, you got to read this book. Right. So yeah, my Instagram, you could, on my link tree through my Instagram, everything is there. But if I can get it where Rolling Out sells their books, I would love to do that, and to do more with this organization as well. Because I remember the old days when I would go to the barbershop and grab a Rolling Out newspaper at the barbershop.
Yeah, they've been feeding the community and the culture, man, for a while, and are digitally doing it virtually, and there's so much more to come. So no doubt. June, let us know as we close out, man, your best-selling book, and how we can grab that and how we can follow you.
It's called Yes, Every Day Can Be a Good Day, The Keys to Success That Lead to an Amazing Life. It's not quite 10 years old. It is 9 years old. It came out 2013. So we're right behind you, Brother Mel, right behind you. And I'll be honest, I agree with Mel. Mel, I want to say this, man. Why wouldn't you say to people, this is one of the best books? Because if you don't believe it, who else is going to believe it? So
right.
I support what you say on that, because with this book, we need this now more than ever. And as the title say, yes, every day can be a good day. Every day may not be a good day. Things are going to happen. There are obstacles. There are roadblocks. But can is the operative word here, based on your perspective. Like Mel said, there's magic in believing. If you believe that the universe is going to grant you the opportunities, if you believe that the universe is going to reward you, those things will happen. But sometimes we kind of neglect that. Sometimes these things that happen to us are just moments. They're just moments, Mel. Sel, it's just a moment. Like, yeah, you burnt the toast, and or yeah, you were speeding because you're trying to get to work on. It's just a moment. It doesn't mean that you're having a bad day, right? It can be a good day based on your perspective. And I realized that we got to catch them young. So I wrote another book called Yes, You Can, a children's book of inspiration. So you can find those on IamJuneArcher.com. Everywhere you need to find me is on that site, whether you want to go to the blog, if you want to go to iTunes to check out the podcast or check out the interviews that I do, IamJuneArcher.com. And I also want to make sure that I'm down with rolling out. I just wanted to support what they're doing, because I know that they're supporting great authors like ourselves. So we have to, like the shirt says, the Black Dollar, we have to make sure that we make this thing circulate amongst our communities so that we could be stronger, not only just for us, but we can have other people realize that they could tap into and support what it is that we're doing, because they believe in the products and services that we actually have, that we're giving. So I am June Archer, at June Archer on every social media platform.
Yeah,
Man,
social
appreciate
media.
it.
I'm at the Total Gent, TheTotalGent. But if you just go to melroberson.com, you could connect with me through all the socials and stuff too. So
Make sure
melroberson.com.
we're gonna drop those links in the chat as well. And I'm just gonna shout out, got Dope Black Boy, the Rich Black Man, co-authored this with a phenomenal guy, Christopher Freeman, serial entrepreneur. And we did a second one, Run It, How to Secure the $1 Million Bag as well. So share those links. It's on. Make sure you visit blackbookstore.com. And fellas, big brothers, boundless brothers, and everybody watching here, appreciate you all. June, Mel, y'all are super beings. Y'all inspire me every single day. So this is what it's about. We creating our own Black Wall Street. We rolling out with it. We riding with it, and we're gonna take it to just infinite levels, because that's what we always built and designed to be. So this has been Boundless Brothers segment of books bound to change a Black man's life. And you have a collection of books to start your library or add to your library and take it to another level. Be boundless. Peace.